So let's move from the NFL. We're in civilian life now.
Yeah.
Let me ask, when did you know I'm done? Because a lot of times the athlete, we're the last ones to know. We're the last one, because we always think, if you just put me in this situation right here, I can still go get you. Yep. I can go get you 2 or 3 of them. We're always the last one to know, but then we come to that point where, and very few people get a chance to gracefully walk away.
Yeah.
You know, on your terms. A lot of times the NFL kicks you out. But when did you have that moment where you were like, yeah, old lights out. It's about time we hang these things on up and call it one.
Yeah. No, I had that moment. Watching film. I was watching film because it was a guy who was playing, I think, for the Bengals or something. It was one of the teams we were playing. And I was watching film. This is a guy I would have, 3, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, I would have cooked. Lunging over. But I didn't have that explosion anymore to go by him. And so that's when it was just watching the film and just watching me changing directions. And it just all looked, I would have made that play, 5 years ago. I would have pivoted and been able to change directions, and I would have made that play. So I think you're right, man. We are the last ones to know, because this is what makes us go. Our mentality is different than everybody else's out there, where we can push ourselves past the normal limits, but our body's telling us that you can't do it.
Yeah.
Here's like, yeah. Your body's like, So one thing that was, probably the biggest part of my game was exploding off the line of scrimmage. I'm 265 pounds, come off the line of scrimmage. With that level of explosion, you're gonna mess some things up. You're gonna make some plays. And so when I tore my Achilles and I lost that, I became above average, where I'll go out and get you a sack here and there, or I might have a good game, but the next game or two, I'll just be flashing around. So I lost the ability to saying, we got to block him every single play and find out where he's on the field at all times. So I'll go out and make a sack, or I'll make a big play, and then I might go missing for 2 quarters. And so that's when I knew that it was time for me to move on. And then 2, I was already set up, right? I already had this, everything with Lights Out. I own the name and rights and trademarks since 2005 for Lights Out. So I already was ready to go into the next step, and I wanted to do TV, and I wanted to do other stuff. And the only way that I was going to come back and it wasn't even really the money at that point, it was almost a situation.
Right.
Buffalo, Doug Whaley had asked me to come back that year after the season, because I actually finished up pretty strong. She's like, man, my last game in Buffalo was the best game I played my entire time there. And against the Jets. And they asked me to come back, and I just knew in my head, and I kind of shook my head at the time, but I knew in my head I was done. I was done. So, yeah, man, I was, it wasn't a problem. I never had that, kind of separation, moving on, and I'm thinking like, oh, man, I got to go back. Like, I knew I was done, not just physically, but also, too, if I couldn't compete at that level anymore, it was like killing me inside that I couldn't do it no more. So it was more of a struggle to go back and play than being out of it. I felt like the pressure was off when I was done. I was like, I'm done. I don't have to force myself to be who I was no more. And I felt comfortable enough to move on, and then I was in the fight business. I started back when I was playing in the mid 2000s. I started training with like Randy Couture and some of these bigger MMA guys, because I wanted to work on my hands. That's why I started to do it. And I just fell in love with the sport. And so every offseason I would go train with these guys. So I actually was going to fight when I retired. I was talking to Bellator, was the MMA fight league, in 2015-16 about having a fight. So I retired, I think, in 13. And so I was training for a full year, and I was doing my broadcast and stuff, whatever, but I was going to fight possibly in Bellator. And that just didn't happen, because I was like before my time when you talk about other athletes and YouTubers, these social media guys getting these big paychecks for fighting. I was just ahead of my time, because the money I was asking for, they'll throw it at you now.
Yeah, chump change back.
It's nothing, But I think at the time I was so early that they didn't understand that, hey, you got this former All-Pro linebacker that can whoop some ass. We might be able to sell some pay-per-views off of him. So the number I was asking for was just astronomical to them. And now we're just like, if I chose to do it now and I was that age, it's like, what ACH, or if you want, what kind of wire you want?
Right.
But I was always ahead of my time. But anyway, what that deal was, I started to work with Bellator a lot. I was like, in all of their meetings. I was like doing marketing stuff with them, a lot of media, a lot of promoting of the bigger fights with like Tito Ortiz and like all the big guys, Rampage. And so I knew about the business of MMA, learning how to negotiate venue deals, which venues to stay out of was going to cost too much because they're too expensive, like the production. So, like I knew all this stuff. So by the time I started launching everything of mine with Lights Out, I had 3 years under my belt.